So I had been living in a van for the past 3 weeks, as evidenced by my beard here. And although I had an absolutely amazing trip, some of the things that have been sticking with me most profoundly in reflecting on the trip are some of the insights and meanings I've taken away about life in general from having gone on this experience. And if you're like me, sometimes we can get caught up in the monotony of day-to-day life. It feels like we're living every single day like the last in this rat race where we're just getting up, going to work, coming home and going to bed, and things can feel tedious or exhausting. Sometimes we'll get stuck in this cycle where a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks can go by and we look back and we're like, holy crap, where is my life going? And something that I'm really grateful for in being on this trip is I was afforded this space and the calmness to kind of reflect and look objectively on what I've been doing in my life and whether or not that's serving me or not. And the reason I'm making this video is not just to brag about my trip, but in some way immortalize some of the lessons I've learned on this trip, because only being back a few days, I'm already slipping back into some of those habits and routines that I spent so desperately trying to get away from being on this trip. So this is an attempt to immortalize that and share that with you guys here in this video. Maybe you're somebody who has no interest in going on a van trip and living out in the wild, but wants some of these insights, or maybe you're somebody who can't afford the 3 weeks off or the van itself. And so what I'm gonna do is package this up into the 3 biggest ideas that I've been able to take away from this trip and share this with you in a way that you might be able to serve and use in your own life with some tactics to help you implement it as well. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, you guys, so before we jump into the 3 bright ideas that I want to share with you, I don't want to brag, but I want to give you some insight into the trip so you understand a little bit about what we did. We flew into Las Vegas and picked up our RV there, and from there we made our way down to the Grand Canyon. We made all of our way through Utah, where we went to Zion, Bryce's National Park, Arches and Moab, then made our way through Salt Lake City, up through the forest in Idaho. We went to Twin Falls, the Sawtooth Forest, went through some hot springs, met a cowboy who introduced us to his pet duck, and then we made our way up into some bigger cities like Seattle, went to the Olympic National Forest, and then down through Oregon, through Portland and Hood River, and finally down in San Francisco. And I share this with you guys because I think a lot of the times people think van life is super glamorous, right? You just wake up and you're on the beach all the time and you have no responsibility or anything to worry about. And although there were parts of that, there's a lot of van life that wasn't so glamorous, right? You're sleeping with somebody where you're not taking showers and there's no bathroom in the van, and you're washing your dishes in a Walmart parking lot. And so I only say this to say that there's a lot more effort and stress that goes into the van life. Not that it wasn't an absolutely amazing trip, but it was part of the journey, and it made me really realize that there's no free lunch. There's no having your cake and eating it too. There's always something involved with that. So if you're somebody who's interested in a trip like that, just keep that in mind, okay? It's not all sunshine and rainbows for all the trip, but net, it was positive and I had an absolutely amazing trip. So I give you that caveat. So let's go ahead and dive into the first bright idea that I want to share with you guys. So the first bright idea that I want to share with you is finding purpose. And this is something that I had been reflecting on just in meeting so many different people on this trip from different walks of life and different stories. We met a guy who was on a search for his biological parents who had just escaped the Mormon church, and he was living his mission. We found people who were, working as river guides and spent 3 months out of the year living in sleeping bags, and all these different crazy walks of life. And something that was pretty clear to me is that we're kind of sold this lie in life that once you get to a certain point, everything's going to be easy. If I just had enough money or the right job or the ability to get away and shed all this responsibility, I could finally be free and just do whatever I want. And in being in some of these more remote places in the US or even throughout the different cities, what I found was that people who were either trying to escape and just seek happiness in their lives or kind of shed all this responsibility to have ultimate freedom where they could pick up and go wherever they want, weren't really that much happier. We're sold this lie that once if we pursue happiness, that's going to be the end all be all. And in reflecting on that, I saw that these people who were seeking happiness, quote unquote, weren't really that much happier. They were still dealing with a lot of the problems and issues and existential crises that people in Detroit, where I'm at, are facing, or people who have paying jobs and work 9 to 5 and are facing as well. And what I started to realize is that if you're pursuing happiness, that's not the direct path. That's not the best path to go. the best path to go is finding a meaning or purpose in life, where in the byproduct of finding that thing, you're then generating happiness. I think about being on the beach, right? Have you ever been on a beach vacation where you're sipping Mai Tais, hanging out, you're getting some sun, everything's great, but eventually you can only do that for so long. You get bored. You start thinking about, other things that you could be doing. How can I serve other people? How can I be building something? How can I be moving on a path? And in being on this trip, I saw a lot of that in the people who were pursuing happiness, is that they were still looking for that fulfillment. They were looking for something that could fill them up. And I think human beings are natural seekers. We want to build, help, serve others. And the best way to do that is to find a meaning or a purpose to build on, right? Find a direction that you want to go, not in service of a selfish endeavor, but an endeavor that serves other people. And so in reflecting on this and thinking about it more, I want to share with you guys a triad that I've developed and have thought about to help people find purpose or meaning or some sort of direction to move in. So for all intents and purposes, I want you guys to imagine a triangle, okay? And this is the triad. First and foremost, when we're thinking about finding a meaning or a purpose, is what are your interests, right? What are the things that interest you? And I think a lot of people understand this about themselves. It's the things that you spend late nights Googling or researching or have a natural affinity towards. It's the things that you find really fascinating and want to learn more about and seek more information and knowledge out about. Those are your interests, the things that you're really jazzed up about. Now that's at the top. And another point of the triad, you want to go with your strengths. And the strengths are not generally interests, it's the things that you're naturally good at, right? A lot of people have interests, but they're not really something that they're good at. A lot of us have these natural strengths that we just naturally seek out or have been born with or have developed over time, right? For me, I love people. Like, one of my strengths is communicating with people, building rapport with people, having conversations with people. I just love people, and that's a strength of mine, communication and, being an extrovert in that manner. Maybe your strengths are, building stuff. Maybe your strengths are, creating systems and plans. Maybe your strengths are knitting, weaving, whatever these, natural strengths that we might have, communicating with other people, building things, whatever it might be. You have these natural strengths that you have a natural affinity towards. And that's the next thing you want to think about when you have your purpose or meaning that you're pursuing. What am I interested in? And then what are my strengths? And the last and most important thing that we want to keep in mind in this triad is, what does the world need? What problems can I solve? How can I serve other people? How can I serve humanity in a greater level? And I think this is where a lot of people miss it. A lot of people think, well, how can I pursue internally my own selfish needs and pursuits, right? How can I get more money, fame, fortune, whatever it might be? And the research tells us that acts in service of other people far outweigh the benefits of acts in selfish service, right? When we serve other people, we feel so much better about the thing we did and ourselves when it's in pursuit of other people versus a selfish act. And so when we're thinking about what we want to be doing, it's not just to get freedom or happiness for ourselves, but it's how can we then serve humanity at a greater level? How can we help other people by combining our strengths and interests to a bigger purpose? And that's the third step of the triad that I really implore you to discover for yourselves. What are the big problems of the world that you could solve with your interests and strengths? How can you serve humanity at a higher level with your interests and strengths that make you feel good about the work you're doing because it serves a greater mission outside of yourself? And so when we're talking about finding purpose, those are the three things I want you guys to think about, and maybe you can fill out your own triad to figure out what your strengths, interests, and problems or service you can have for humanity at a greater level. So bright idea number 2 that I want to share with you guys are meaningful interactions. In being on this trip, I had some amazing experiences, right? Dustin, my partner, and I were hiking Zion National Park and diving into the Grand Canyon and meeting tons of people on our hikes and walks. And we had these really cool, unique experiences. We were canyoneering and rappelling the sides of mountains, and those experiences were great. But the things that stuck with me at the highest level were the meaningful interactions that I had with other people, whether interactions with myself, interactions with Dustin, or interactions with the people that we met on this trip. Those were the things that I remembered most. It was a woman that we met on the trail who ended up leaving us a note on our RV, and she recommended some ice cream spots and sent us her number and wanted to stay in touch. Or it was the guy that we met at the bar who was escaping Mormonism and wanted to find his biological parents that, I just really, really resonated with me. Or even the people we said hi to on the trails, right? I noticed that everybody was always waving and smiling at each other on the hikes and trails that we were going on. And those were the moments that I remember most. And something that came through to me in reflecting on this trip is that people are fuel. People are the thing that paints life in a meaningful context, the interactions that you have with people. And that's something that's been really resonating for me. And in diving deeper into this, now being home, something I realized is that not only is it that we need to have meaningful interactions with people, but they need to be positive. A lot of us, in the COVID era, have been getting our interactions virtually, whether that's social media or digitally or whatever that might be. And we know that those interactions don't leave us, we don't walk away from those interactions on Instagram, Facebook, whatever it might be, more positive than we did beforehand. A lot of the times, they're actually negative to our mental health. We're going on Instagram and Facebook and feeling worse coming away from those things than we did, to begin with. And so what I want to stress here is the positive, meaningful interactions that we have with other people and how we can cultivate those. If you're like me, sometimes you're in a situation where you're talking with somebody and you're already thinking about the next thing that you have to do on your to-do list, and you're not even there listening to that person. And in researching this, I found that on average, it takes up to 5 positive interactions to negate the effects of a negative interaction. 5 positive ones. So you need to have 5x the amount of positive interactions you're having for every negative interaction you have. And so in thinking about ways that we can cultivate this, a way that we can think about this is, a lot of the times people think that the things that give our life meaning are the really big, long decade goals that we set, or the really big, long missions that we're pursuing and trudging on. And although those things are important, all those relationships and things that we're pursuing are strung together by little micro moments. And if you think of a little micro moment as like a 3-second moment, those compounded over time lead to the depth and trust you have with your partner, spouses, children, coworkers, everything. These are all built on these little micro moments. And if a moment's a 3-second interval, you have about 1,200 moments every single hour. And those are the things you really want to pay attention to. So in thinking about a tactic I could give you guys to help reinforce more positive interactions with other people in our day-to-day life, I want to share a tip with you. The best thing about this trip was that I didn't have cell phone service for most of the trip. And even if I did, I didn't have my phone on me. And not having my cell phone to stave me away from deep, meaningful interactions with the people I was meeting and the adventures that I was on really built a deep purpose in each of those activities that I was doing, whether I was talking to Dustin or another person or just being present on the hike. And looking at some of the research, a 2015 research study found that even just having your phone on a table or somewhere in sight when meeting with another person, that person gauged that meeting or that interaction as more negative than if the phone was out of sight or out of mind. And so just having your phone present actually leads to less meaningful interactions and conversations with people. So if I give you any one tactic, it's put your phone away. If you want to have deeper, more meaningful, more positive interactions with people, try putting your phone away when you're having dinner with your family or your loved ones, or you're going on a walk, or you're having a conversation with a dear friend, right? That simple step can help build more momentum in the present moment to engage a little bit more directly and have you feel like that moment is a little bit more special and have that person walk away where it's a more positive interaction than it had been before. Another really quick tidbit I want to give you guys, if you are going to interact on digital social media, is to follow the time outline. Like I said, a lot of us find coming away from social interactions on social media are net negative instead of net positive. So to build more positive, meaningful experiences online, I want to share this with you. It's the TIME kind of model. T stands for time bound. So if you're gonna kind of doze off and go on social media for X amount of time, make sure it's time bound. Make it 5 minutes or 10 minutes, set a timer, and make sure that by the end of that timer, you're getting off. The I stands for intentional. You wanna make sure that if you're gonna pick up your phone, if you're like me, sometimes just pick it up and click on the Instagram tile, and I'm like, what the heck am I doing? How did I get here? A lot of us need to be intentional. Make sure that when you're picking up your phone to engage, you're doing it with an intentional purpose, whether that's to see what your friends said to you, or you're going to wish somebody happy birthday, or whatever that might be, make it intentional. M means make it meaningful. And meaningful is different from intentional in the sense that make it something that you're proud about or that you're interested in, building some type of relationship or meaning behind, right? Meaningful for me is going in and wanting to, like I said, wish somebody a happy birthday, or going in and wanting to engage with my, close community of friends and loved ones in a group chat or something like that. Make the interaction meaningful versus some type of just, mindless scrolling of seeing what the Kardashians are up to or how your friends are beating you in X, Y, and Z aspect. And then the E stands for enrich. At the end of each interaction, gauge whether or not that was an enriching interaction or whether that was a net negative interaction. And take a mental note. what did I do? Why did I do it? And why did that end up being a net negative versus enrichment, engagement? And that way, what you can do is keep a psychological record of what things are enriching and what things aren't enriching, and then you can avoid them in the future, and then also do more of the enriching ones in the future. So those are my tips for you guys. Put your phone away, and if you're going to engage in digital media, use the time outline, TIME, to make sure that your engagements online are more enriching versus negative. All right, and the last and probably the most important bright idea that I want to share with you guys from this trip is move. Get your butt up and move. Now, in thinking about this, Dustin and I were probably walking somewhere between 8 to 10 miles every single day. We spent a majority of the day walking around, and in doing this much movement, I realized how much more energetic I felt, how much more vital I felt, and even better, how much sleepier I was when I was getting ready to go to bed, sleeping deeper and better. It was crazy to me because just moving more made me feel better. And in reflecting on this, I realized that human beings are basically just animals. We're wild animals that over the past couple thousand years have put ourselves in captivity. We now live in these little tiny boxes and spend all of our day looking at these little tiny boxes and scrolling on these little tiny boxes, and we're really like caged animals. Most human beings spend 9 hours a day sitting, and we spend less time sleeping, right? Our caveman ancestors spent 8 to 9 hours a day moving and walking around. So we're sitting more than ever, we're moving less than ever, and we're keeping ourselves trapped inside these little boxes we call houses and not getting exposed to the outside nature that we're so accustomed to being historically, right? This is just a very recent development. And the detriments of sitting are absolutely crazy. I mean, just sitting for, an hour a day does crazy stuff to your blood sugar, increases your bad cholesterol levels, it atrophies your muscles and changes the innervations in your legs. It does a bunch of crazy stuff, and I think a lot of us are feeling this. I know I sit crazy amounts during our day, and I didn't only realize how much I was sitting until I went away and started moving all day. And so I think there needs to be a positive movement for getting back into nature, but also just moving more. Because just by moving even once every hour, we're increasing our energy levels, we're increasing the amount of blood flow that's going to our brain, that's enhancing creativity and motivation. It's like taking a little bit of Ritalin and a little bit of Prozac, as my friend and mentor Brian Johnson says, right? It gives us that surge of motivation to help focus our attention, and also that calmness and well-being of an antidepressant type effect where we're feeling better about our lives. The serotonin, the oxytocin, and being up and moving around does wonders for our brain. And so in reflecting on this even further, I want to share a tactic with you guys that I've been implementing and that maybe you can use as well. And that's just standing. Just standing a little bit more every single day. We don't realize that just by getting up and standing and then sitting down, how important that is to just getting your blood flowing, making you feel energetic and alive from just sitting for 9 hours straight. And so my recommendation to you guys is I set a timer for every 1,000 seconds, and then I'll get up, I'll do some of these bad boys. I don't know if this is truncating. I'll do some of these bad boys. I'll stretch out a little bit. I'll do a walk around the office maybe, and then I'll sit back down and get back to work. Or I'll just continue standing at a standing desk and keep moving that way. But even if it's really, really little, just do something really small where every hour you're getting up and taking a walk around, or you're spending part of your day standing, or maybe you're going for a walk outside for, 30 minutes or so every single day. But moving is so important for our energy, and when your energy levels are high, you're gonna have more presence and meaningful interactions with the people you love and the people around you. And if you're having great interactions, your energy levels are high, what's that gonna do to your motivation and focus and meaning for what you're pursuing and how you feel about the things that you're doing on a day-to-day basis? So in summary, this trip was absolutely amazing, but it's not about the trip. It's about what I brought from the trip and wanted to share with you guys. And the most important things are finding a meaning and purpose in life is more important than happiness. Having good levels of energy and getting around, stretching, being out in nature does wonders for your mental health. And lastly, just getting up and having positive interactions with people by hiding digital distractions and connecting in present moments with people is one of the most important things we could do to find happiness in our lives. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions or things you want to talk deeper about the trip itself or ways that you can implement these tactics, hit me up in the comments below. Let me know what you guys liked about this video, and hopefully this served you in some capacity. Get out there, get on the road if that's something that you guys are interested in and taking a journey for yourself. And if not, I'll see you guys on the next video.